mind.
Never mind.
The session has just started to record. Your students aren't here as yet, though.
I just spoke with one of them. They're coming over.
Okay then.
The Mona. I just spoke with Mr. Sam. He's coming across the campus.
Okay.
And I just spoke with somebody in Montego Bay. They're on their way.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Where's the glass? Exactly, so no, yeah, good day. So Dr. Ferraria, I'm going to tell you something, we have class in.
Mr. Clark, I'm hearing you.
Yes, Doc, I'm here. I'm just taking over my book.
Yes, I'm in, well, I don't have to tell you I'm in Montego Bay. I can't see you guys though.
We're not there yet.
Are you not there yet?
Oh,
So how is it I'm hearing you?
Not in view.
Hi, Ferraria. We finally see each other again.
Yes, but I see several persons in the class.
Hi, Doc. Hi, Doc. You don't remember me?
Who is that?
This is Marilyn.
Who, Marlene?
Yes.
I'd have to stand up and do.
Oh, me need my charger.
It's only position.
Good evening, guys. Good afternoon.
Sorry, I have more students now. What's going on? Robin,
Yes, Doc.
I have more students now at Mona.
If what?
I have more students in the class now.
No. These are visitors.
Unfortunately, miss.
These are visitors.
Okay.
You want me to ask them to kindly leave? Is that it?
No, I mean, if they could go like where they're not in my side.
Oh, they're leaving.
Okay, because they could go to the back of the computer lab, it wouldn't matter to me.
Okay, thank you.
But they're sitting directly behind you. That's all right. I don't have a problem with you being elsewhere since you're using the lab. But maybe if you go to the back, I won't see you.
Yeah, we'll be going to the back. Thank you, Doc.
Well, I won't be distracted by you. Is that how you look at the summer, Mr. Clark?
If what?
Is that your summer
it's a swag. Part of the summer swag.
Very relaxed. I'm not accustomed to seeing you like that. Mrs. Sam,
Yes, Dr. Ferry.
you two are like that too?
No.
All comfortable?
You're comfortable.
No ties. No long sleeve shirt.
What time long t-shirt?
Okay, I'm just waiting for Dario. I'm blessing my eyes on Dario for the first time. She doesn't look anything like what you look like in the pictures.
Really?
No, I couldn't connect you. I would pass you.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I look better in person.
No, you look nice, but I'm saying I don't know what your face look like. So
Oh,
you
it
think
was
you're
fuzzy?
seeing the person? No, it's clear, but I just
Oh.
can't see you enough to know that it's you.
Oh.
Would you have been able to see me?
But
know me?
you look taller.
I look taller now in here.
No,
Yeah.
you actually look taller. Yeah.
You don't look anything like you. Okay, the time is coming.
I kind of wish it's
Where's
Huh?
raining. Where's it coming?
Really?
Yeah, raining.
Hard?
Looks more country.
Okay. And so many other places so dry.
I know, we get rain very often.
Okay.
Yes, Regina. Yes, no, okay.
We're sorting out.
Yeah, don't catch the shoe.
Okay. We're on now. We're ready?
Yes, start.
Yes. It's good to see you guys.
Likewise.
Likewise.
Mr. Sam, you wearing a shades?
No,
You wearing glasses?
yes, I
partially
wear tested.
blind.
I wear tested.
Okay, just want to be sure.
Partially blind.
Okay. Well, Regina is on her way, so we'll soon get started. But it's been a very long time, and I still never nearly not make it this afternoon. My husband drove me down, so he's actually outside. Yeah, I went to the doctor before I came here, so that's why I asked for the 2 hours. I had to go on, for there. But class remained the same schedule. This is just different for this afternoon. But rather than shelving the entire class, I thought that it would be good to still meet you for the first evening, because we have some housekeeping for 21F
Yes.
to sort out. You're right, and we have the way forward for this class. Right, so what we will do until Regina gets here, I know that you already have your schedule that it goes up to August 13,
Right. Yes, sir.
the classes.
Right.
And it's weird times because it's 2:30 to 7, you know that?
Yes.
And Thursday's class is what? 8 to 2:30?
Right.
30.
Huh?
Yes, to 2:30. That is correct.
8 o'clock to 2:30.
8:30 to 2:30.
8:30 to 2:30. Because this is really, really intensive.
Right.
All right. I spoke with Dr. Folcom. This is the summer two. Read the second half of the course, because it's a 6-credit course.
Yes.
At Mona, we offer it in semester 1 and then in semester 2. So we are pretty much doing it the same way as how we would have offered it. But then, in consultation now with Dr. Folcom, because I went off for CXC, so I asked her to do summer 1 first, which was the first half of the course, and then now we move into the second half, which completes the 6 credits for the course. What she said to me, we were supposed to have met yesterday In fact, this morning again, before I come down, but then I rushed down for the doctor. So we didn't have that meeting. But I have taught this course in its entirety, so I don't know where she cut off your assignment, the assessment from. Because there are 4 pieces of assessment, 4 major pieces of assessment. I want to know if you got the research component already. Did you do the research?
Well, what we did
Lesson plan already.
You did the lesson planning. Did you do a research piece?
no, we didn't do a research piece. We did a rationale, lesson rationale.
Well, I know it's lesson planning, and then there's a kind of mini research, and then there is the best practice manual. The best practice manual. I don't know if that is what she did with you.
No, we did a
So
test.
what did you hand in as your assignment?
We did an exam that valued 60 marks, 60%
Yes.
of the course, and then we did a lesson with our lesson rationale using the text principle.
Yes, and then you did some micro teaching.
Yes.
So the second half of course, the second half of the course is really looking at the resources that you use in the class, textbook evaluation, the role of the HOD, and the overall best practice, the best practices in teaching English, as it were. That's what I know is the last part of the course. Whether or not we will do the research component is debatable, but I thought you would have been given it in the first instance, because if you don't do that, then you're going to find that none of the courses that you have this mini research that prepares you for the major research that you do. But we will work out that, as you know, by the next class I should be able to tell you what I am shelving. But I don't want to shelve anything. I prefer to collapse them into one piece so that you still get the overall essence of the course, right? So what I want you to do now, in order to help me, first and foremost, is to just do a reflection on the hi, how are you? Okay, my pleasure meeting you. Okay, Regina just stepped in. Okay, yes, Robbie.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah?
Reflection on? That's what we're doing.
That's
Reflection
all?
on? Are we doing the reflection?
Yes,
on
you're going to
how are
do-
you?
No, Regina stepped into the classroom. Regina. And so I turn around and say, hi, how are you? You're too bad, Robin. So we're all here now. Let us go back over what it is that you have covered and learned in the first half of the course, key factors, and then we move on. From my understanding, you would have covered extensively the key factors in the teaching English in terms of second language theories and so on. But then you did that.
Yes, we did.
Second, so let's go over what you did so we know now. Based on where we are, I'll tell you now where we are going to go from here. So we're starting with you, Robin.
Yes, I looked at it's Bonnie, North and Pierce, and it was titled Social Identity, Investment and Language Acquisition. Right, and it's really a theory that criticized earlier works done by second language acquisition theorists who did not consider the social environment in which the language learners operated in. And the study was a longitudinal study that was done in Canada over a 1-year period. And really what the researcher, it was qualitative in nature, and the researcher really, her informants were immigrants, mostly from Europe. And I think it's in a post-World War context, where they're really leaving Europe to come to Canada with the expectation that life would be better. And what she was really looking at is how is it that these persons were actually learning English as a second language And she was saying that in their case, it is very important, for example, for second language acquisition learners to understand what is called the relations of power. How that in and of itself affects how people learn language or don't learn language. Not how the earlier theorists argued about motivation, affective or social values.
Oh, please, yes.
Variables, right. She was saying that those variables, the research, Pierce was saying that those variables don't account, for example, when you're looking at things such as a society that is structured in a particular way, where in Canada, for example, white Anglophone Canadians they have what is called the cultural capital, and one of the cultural capital is the ability to use the Anglophone English, and how that in and of itself, other people who don't speak the language. So she argued that it was more investment that why these people were really trying to learn English as a second language, and not because they were motivated. And investment really was the fact that you are doing it, you are learning this.
Yes.
You are learning the second language because you want certain social, symbolic, and real returns. So whether it be, for example, friends, a job, or anything like that.
So the motivation was not spurred by the language itself. It was the outcome, what you expected.
Right, and if it was motivation, it means that motivation in and of itself had to be reconceptualized. Right. So that's the theory I looked at.
Yes, and then what is interesting about that, Robin, is that when we reflect on that in terms of what those findings mean for our Caribbean experience, one of the things that we grapple first with is the power relations in language acquisition. And when you look at the Canadian situation, remember that it's French. It's always about the French aspect that they try very hard to keep as well. So it's not it's not a non-standard quote-unquote language, as in the case of other social power relations that perhaps come out of the experience of, like slavery, as it were. So our social milieu is totally different. And that was a very useful piece of research too, because what it did was that almost in one breath, it challenged most of the second language theories that seem to gain their data from maybe artificial settings, as it were.
Right.
And social settings.
And then of course the study was used now to suggest to language teachers how they should teach English as a second language. For example, ensure that there is a kind of relationship between the language learning group and the target language group, that there's a relationship so that the persons themselves can actually see how the target language is being used. And in my mind, it fits into Brian's argument about language input. The teacher having various examples of the target language, for example, in the learning environment, so that the student, whoever is learning the language, can see how it is being modeled in various forms. In speaking, in writing, in that kind of thing.
It has to be a utilitarian kind of notion, practical and useful. Right. And so that is actually echoing some of the sentiments of 21F.
Right.
The whole notion of purposeful, meaningfulness, and so on. Right, and the whole social context, which will now tell you that the language has to be interactive, and things like you don't get the data in a language laboratory, please, because that is contrived. And it's not really looking at the social factors. And we also know that there are social factors like age, sex, gender, social class, and all those other elements that would have impacted the language acquisition process.
Right.
Okay, good. Let me get now from, who is going first? Dario, reflect on the course. What have you taken away from the first half of the course? Who is going first? All right, go ahead, Dario.
We looked at
Okay.
we looked at the acculturation theory, we looked at Schumann's acculturation theory, and we know that Robin's social identity.
Are you hearing, Robin?
Yes, yeah, I'm hearing.
Okay, good. Okay.
Robin's social identity theory was criticized some of the findings of Schumann's theory. Coming out of it, we found out that there were a number of things that you had to consider when you were trying to teach a second language or teach a language that's not native to a particular place to non-speakers. The two main ideas that Schumann proposed were that there was psychological distance and social distance.
Oh, yes.
And he gave factors, or he gave a wide definition of what he meant by social and psychological distance. Integral in the idea, in understanding the whole concept of social distance, you had things like attitude. How did these learners feel? How did they interact? How did they view the language that they were learning? You had other things like how long residence, how long they were a part of the target language that they were trying to learn. There were ideas of congruence, togetherness, and there were some other things that came out of it. But when you spoke of, when he spoke of psychological distance, it was supposed to tap into something else apart from the social aspects of the learning. So it had to do with things like motivation and things like that. And I think it was useful learning what Schumann proposed, because what we got to see was that there are a number of factors that can hinder.
Yes.
There are a number of factors
Yes.
that help to encourage persons to learn a second language. And if you're not knowledgeable or aware of these things, then there will be some problems, some barriers.
Yes, and so true, Dario, because especially for our situation, I think, one of the powers of the course is the way it immerses you in the research so that you can understand the theory and broaden your perspective, because what we tend to do is narrow our focus on just the whole issue with Creole and Standard English and feel that that is all that it takes in relation to language learning, not realizing that there are other factors. So while the research, that most of the research that you have engaged in are for like second language and not necessarily second like dialectal situations. The research findings are powerful because what they allow you to do now is to reflect on some of the issues in terms of our pedagogical, persuasions in terms of what we are going. And people will quickly say, oh, we just have to teach English as a second language in this country and all our problems will go away. But there's more to SLA than just use the methodologies. And what I'm hearing from you, I feel heartened by it because you have gone into the depths of the research to take out some key issues. The piece that Robin looked at, that's good, Schumann's findings, those things are very important because we need that kind of background in order to move forward. Because once we get back, we are going to say, so having done all of this research and having engaged in that research, what is the connection now between research and practice? And then what practice should we now either emulate or formulate? Notice I said formulate or emulate, because perhaps there's nothing to emulate. Perhaps we have to design for ourselves. But what we have from the research are the kind of insights that we need. Very good. Two good pieces of research. Gavin, what about you? Mr. Sam?
Yes, Dr. Ferry. I looked at Corda's error analysis.
Whose?
Corda's error analysis.
Oh,
theory.
yes.
And this would have actually come before all the other theories that you've heard. So this theory came about as a result of the limitations of the previous theory, contrastive analysis, which was simply limited to Western language acquisition, second language acquisition theory. So contrastive analysis really focused on how the target language, acquisition of the target language was somewhat impeded by the mother tongue of persons who are trying to acquire the second language. So it's limited to that. So because of the limitations associated, error analysis came about because it didn't focus solely on how the target acquisition of the target language could have been impacted by the mother tongue, but looked at other factors that can impact second language acquisition. And it was a useful tool for the most part because it gave insight as to understanding the whole process of second language acquisition. It provided details to linguists for the most part as to the troublesome areas of errors that cause errors on the part of second language learners. And it can actually provide useful feedback for teachers as to how to impact the classroom to the end of ensuring that all students leave with competence in the target language, standard English. So we're introduced to some strategies that were employed in identifying errors and dealing with them. But there was a distinction made between errors and mistakes because he pointed out that for the most part we consider any mistake or any error as being highly problematic, and that errors should all be disencouraged. And errors, for the most part, based on how it was actually pitched, we sense that errors were simply looked at as being tantamount to crimes or a sin that should be completely eradicated.
Yes,
so that
yes.
was the idea. So the distinction that was made was that mistakes were simply slips of the tongue, right? And it could have been caused by apprehension, any form of anxiety on the part of the second learner, right? So the person will actually have command of the code, but by certain unforeseen circumstances, the person simply slipped. But then the person is readily able to identify the slip and correct it. However, on the part of error, it comes about where you're not able to identify that you've made an error, so it's not correctable, and it's generally systematic. There's generally a flow, a general trend that is identifiable as it relates to error. Alright, so this is what informed error analysis. But naturally, based on the exigencies of the classroom environment, a teacher will not be able to tackle all errors when they are made. And I think you pointed to this in our previous course, that there's a demand of syllabus completion and all that. So as teachers, we can't correct every error whenever they are made. And I mean, it can actually demotivate the student. So the CORDA actually introduced some steps that could be employed in error analysis. And the first is to identify whether or not these errors are systematic. And if we find that there's a particular trend, it's a system, we then need to identify what is actually the source of the error. Is it that of the mother tongue interference with the I think that's referred to as interlanguage as a factor when the mother tongue impacts the acquisition of the second language. And some general features of that is copula deletion. In our case, copula deletion, like I'm hungry. Right? Instead of I'm hungry, so there's no usage of the copula there. Right? Or it could be a case of intra-language when the person or the learner simply overgeneralizes the rules of the language. Right? So like we thought that a singular subject takes a singular verb. Right? So she what? She have it. No, that's over. She have it. I use that as what? 2 foots. I think 2 foots.
Okay.
Alright?
Pluralizing it with having an S.
Let's assume that. Pluralization. Plural marker. So we know that a plural noun should have an S at the end or a fixed S at the end. So we generalize it. So we say 2 foot. And that's an example, an instance of intra-language as being a factor. Yeah. But then, there are other factors too, and I think these were disregarded. I don't know why. But one has to look too at the quality of the input on the part of the teacher. Because sometimes, if the teacher is not really a model of the language, then that will become problematic, because I guess students will assume that you're the one teaching me, you should be competent, you should have complete proficiency in the language that I'm trying to acquire. So I hold you as a standard. And if the teacher is not really the standard of the language, then naturally the students will not be equipped with the tool to command the particular target language. And two, sometimes we have to focus on the textbook that is being used.
Right.
So error analysis too can inform the designing of the syllabus itself. What areas need to be more focused on than others. It could inform textbook writers as to what examples or strategies that they would have actually used had positive impact on the learning process, and what really didn't matter to the students. So I think error analysis for the most part provides a useful guide to both teachers and other persons who have holes in the education process.
Okay. Wow. Now that was like a mouthful. Yes, Mr. Sam Gavin. Very comprehensive. And what I want to respond to, two things in particular. The work on error analysis is very important for us. And one of the things that it did not just involve the language learning, but also comprehension, strategies, schema, theory, and all of that. And one of the key persons, practitioners in language learning that's coming closer to us, Kenneth Goodman. His work on error, he didn't use error analysis at all. In fact, he spoke of the miscue analysis. And one of the things that they use to develop that theory is that what we are considering to be errors are really miscues, and they are the learner's best strategy in attempting to attack or identify the words. So whereas it was called error first, meaning that it was something wrong, as you rightly say, almost as if they were committing a crime, miscue analysis gives it a more positive outlook and puts it in the realm that, yes, it is a learner strategy that gives us insight into where the learner is, and not necessarily a crime that the learner has developed. Because if he looks at a word like, let's say, book, and he says look, it means then that he's applying something in terms of the configuration of the word to the words. So it is more like a miscue, not an error. Meaning that, because remember, cues, words give us cues as to what they are. You're reading something and you hear but, so you expect to hear something different. So the but becomes a cue. So when the child says the wrong thing, he gets a miscue, not an error. He doesn't make an error. So it's more like a miscue for him. And that is why when we go now into miscue analysis as opposed to error analysis, what the miscue analysis does is allow us to focus more on the strategy employed by the learner rather than looking at error analysis, looking at where the learner has failed. Right? So sometimes they are used interchangeably in the literature. But I personally prefer miscue analysis because some of the errors that we think our students make, they are not really speaking in standard English. They are really speaking in another language, and it is quite correct in Jamaican Creole, so I can't call it an error. If you understand what I'm trying to say. Error analysis, error suggests that this is the wrong thing in terms of the target, but the child might have selected Jamaican Creole as his language choice to speak in. So we now are in a situation where we have to begin not only to look at the social context as it relates to what are the norms and how the learners relate to each other, or how the society is, but also in terms of how the language is valued or not valued in that particular society. And if in our Caribbean context, not just the Jamaican context, the Caribbean English as opposed to the vernacular of that particular language is just as valid as the other one. So we cannot call it error analysis, because it's not an error. It is quite correct. So when the child gets up and says, the boy them playing outside, he's correct. He's correct. He's just not, we did not give you an utterance in English, because it's not boy then. It's supposed to be boys. The boys are playing outside. So that's why we now have to begin to look at these kinds of things in the way that you were looking at Gavain. That there comes a time when the child is interlanguage, reaches a stage of fossilization. You know what a fossil is?
Yes.
In geography, what's a fossil? It's what?
At the stage where there is no other form of...
Nothing else for it to be done. That's the stage. Right. So the child language can fossilize at a certain point. So ima nyamin dinner, ima eat, ima that, right up. He will never get to he is eating his dinner. The closest he might get to him eating or him eating him dinner. Not he. Still have. And it doesn't matter what you say, that child has fossilized there. That's where he is. But in terms of meaning, it is accurate. In terms of the sentiment, it is accurate. The bottom line is that it's not really an error that the child is making, but more up unto the point where that is all he knows. That is where he is. So the question we are asking now, many of our Jamaican students who are fossilized, their language is in the state of fossilization. Can they move? Can they move from where they are? And how do you move them? Because that's what, and then it means, what kind of strategies are we going to get in order to move them along? So that's one way in which I'd like to respond to what you have. There is also something else that you were mentioning. I hope it didn't slip me now. Did I write it down? That was very useful in the research that you were doing. Okay, I better leave it. But I know I got the error analysis, the miscue analysis, but there's one other area. I thought I had scribbled it to mention something, but it will come back. But again, in terms of what we have gotten from your peers, the research that you have looked at, Gavain, is very, very important for our language classroom in the Caribbean, because we are big on errors and mistake. Everything for us is an error and a mistake. It's wrong. Yeah, we have never said to the child, that is correct, but not in the language that I want, because we don't teach with that level of sensitivity. Yeah, you were going to say something?
Yeah, because I think you had said in our previous semester that we correct errors based on the goals of the lesson. So if a student is given a fluent speech and a particular error is made, and it really, you're not focused on that in the lesson, you shouldn't stop the student to correct the student about that error. I mean, you can talk to the student afterwards, but you shouldn't feel it. If it's not really the intended goal of the class to focus on that particular error, then it means that you should actually almost disregard it for the moment, for the time. And one other useful thing that I got from it too is that as teachers, we generally correct if a student submits a written piece, and whenever we find errors or identify what we assume to be errors, we readily correct it. So we either rephrase or circle the error and write the correct form. And it was suggested that we don't do that. We use symbols instead, so that we didn't force the student to actually correct himself. And his
yes, self-correction is the best tool for language learning. So when the learner can talk and then reflect and correct. So sometimes his hesitations are not necessarily indications that he does not know. His hesitation is just a period that he needs to reflect before he attacks the word. You know, but we look for all of these things as setbacks for the reading and not as learner strategies that are empowering the learner. Because when a child comes to a word and pauses, he doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't know the word, you know. He's there and sometimes he substitutes another word and it doesn't change the meaning or the context of the situation. And that's those kinds of things that come in miscue analysis are seen as powerful indicators of second language learning rather than errors. Let me go over that again. If the child is reading a comprehension passage and comes to a point where he sees, and the teacher told the children to leave the classroom, but he reads, and the teacher told the students to leave the classroom. You just leave it. It is perfect. There is nothing wrong there. So it becomes a miscue and not an error. It is in the realm of substitution, because what the child has done is substitute another word that works fine in the sentence. But we call those errors. And that's why we have to be careful that we know what we are naming, especially in reading. If there's substitution and the words that are substituted do not change the meaning of the context, but they are synonyms, it means that that child reading order is high. But you wouldn't think it is high. You would think that the child who reads it off error-free is a better reader. But then test him now. Perhaps him can't get any of the comprehension questions right, even though he read the entire passage. So the child who reads, hesitates, reflects, substitutes, etc., etc., is not necessarily a weak student. It is a student who is, in a sense, who is empowered, who has power over the print. So much so that he can reflect on whatever he's reading at the same time. Because when you test that child, the insights he might get from it is better than what a child who rattles it off is able to get. So that's why I feel that, especially for our context, we have to make sure, are we looking at the miscue analysis and see what it is that cues the learner in doing that, right? A cue tells you when to come in, you know, like you miss the cue like you're dancing, you say you come on, or when the choir is practicing and the tenor is to come in and the conductor gives a cue, you know. He's not just there waving him hand aimlessly. When he does that, he knows who is calling up. And when he does that, he knows every single sign of his hand has a different meaning. So that is it with the learner as well, whatever he does. So we are getting insights from those research, even though they were carried out in second language learning contexts that are totally different from ours. When we question them and reflect on them, it gives us insights as to where we are to go. And one of the biggies is error analysis. Because the moment we begin to think of it as error analysis, we're going down a wrong path. In fact, there are some second language theorists from in dialectal situations who do not even like the term Creole interference. They don't like the term Creole interference because they don't feel that the Creole is interfering. They feel that the Creole is being exploited in order for the child to make meaning. So the child substitutes the Creole word and continues and still has meaning. So these are some of the issues that we now have to question some of those. All right, very good. So far, so we're just reaching on you now, Regina. Which area did you look at and what you want to talk about?
Basically, I looked at the acculturation theory also. But before all of that, I
I was very fascinated with the whole development of Creole and the substratus view, the whole plantation society, how Creole came along, the mixing of the different languages and the formation of the new language and all of that. But when I looked at acculturation, the main thing that struck me was the issues of race and class that are still associated with acquiring a second language. Because I just realized that it's not all about I want to know English, but it's about what can I gain from learning English and
what I'm going to do with it.
What the end result, so it's going to affect me. So now I understand why certain people, they don't want their child to speak Patois because they're associated with a certain race or a certain social class, as opposed to speaking English and being associated with a particular social class. So that was the main thing that struck me. Another thing that struck me was that English, even though the whole acculturation process can be reciprocal, we realize that it is mainly Creole speakers trying to acquire English. You never really find that English speakers want. They're probably fascinated with the language.
Yes.
But they don't want to learn it because they still see their language as this superior language.
Yes.
So the whole reciprocal thing, I realized, and it all goes back to the issues of race and class.
Yes.
That we struggle with in the Jamaican society.
You're so right. Because if you interface with some theorists, they like when we say Jamaica, no problem, mom. But they just want to hear us say because it now becomes something that they would want. But that's as far as they want it. Just because it's their way of making a connection. Or we might say Jamaica, Irie man. So sometimes you're there, you see them in the stores around and you hear them trying to talk like us. Irie man, cool man. But that is as far as they want to go with it because it serves the purpose for them while they're on vacation. That sense of connection. And we are fascinated too when they try, and it breaks the ice and then that's it. But they don't want to use it for any other reason than to feel a part of us while they're here, right? So, and that in itself tells us that language acquisition ought to be purposeful. Why do I need this language? And hence all the implications for us here, because you still have the language resistance, because learners are still asking, what am I going to do with English? What am I want it for? In fact, some will look at you and say, but I talk English, or you don't understand me. And they're speaking that in Creole. So the lines are so blurred that even some teachers don't know when they are using English from when they are not using English. So that is the nature of our background, right? So what I want to ask now, having looked at that, half of the course, I want us to come up with some key things that you think we were looking at and what we're going to carry over now. Just some key things. I have my key things. What is it that you, in a nutshell, what did you really look at that is going to inform where we go next? I don't know if I phrase the question correctly. You understand what I'm trying to say, Robin?
What to tell you?
Robin? Huh?
Well, I think it's about the whole idea of positive impact in our classroom, space, and well, teaching English in a Creole speaking environment. And
okay.
I think,
the whole thing is teaching English in a Creole speaking environment. So that's our umbrella. And then the next thing.
Through a methodology.
Through a particular methodology. Right. So one of the things that we look at is the role of theory. The role theory plays in teaching English. The role of theory in practice. So we're looking at theory and practice. I want you to write those down. We're looking at theory and practice. And one of the things that we are going to find that this second half of the course is about is to see that there is a reciprocal relationship between theory and practice. And it is in the realm of this reciprocity, or whatever, reciprocity, that we are going to see our role now. Because if it is a relationship like that, it means theory informs what we do, but it also means that what we do informs theory. So let us get this. We are now looking at the reciprocal relationship between theory and practice. In all theories, to be honest. In all theories. Even how you open a car door is theory. And there's a connection between it and the actual thing. So we are now into this thing of knowing and doing. It's this connection that the course now wants to make about knowing and doing. So how do we shift from what we know to do? That's another thing we're looking at. Moving from the knowledge that we now have to actually engage in practice. And it is this reciprocal nature of the two dimensions of theory and practice that positions the teacher not only as a practitioner, but also a theorist. I hope I get it right. So what that tells you now, yes, you have looked at all of those, Schumann, Goodman, all of those research that we have looked at. But they are now not just the authentic source of your knowledge. You yourself will have to develop yourself as theorists. So if you now are practitioners, you cannot be practicing the teaching of English in a Creole environment without being informed of some theory. And when I say some theory, can I tell you, every teacher out there has a theory. Because theory is a way of doing something. Theory questions, how do I do this? What informs what I do? Right? And so in this course, what we are going to do is draw from the best of what we have heard. We are going to take perhaps an eclectic approach, meaning that we pull something from acculturation. You see what we are getting at? You pull something from there. Right, because each of those theories are embedded with something salient for the way forward. Right? You agree with that? Yes. And it is within that light that we are now positioned in this course at this point as, you know, like experimenting. So our role now is to be, we are experimenting. We are the innovators of the teaching experience, right? So because we are now investigating, we are constantly looking at how best to engage our students in it. So we are putting ourselves in a kind of disposition that says, I am searching for pedagogy. I am searching for pedagogy. And it has to be a search, because all that we have examined so far, because of the limitations that they may offer in terms of cultural relevance, as was pointed out by Robin, or based on what Darius says about not looking at some other key factors like the psychological distance, especially that comes out of our social milieu, you know, in terms of class and so on. And also to look at the speaker himself in terms of the utterances that they make, in terms of, we don't have what used to exist as what they call the ideal, what you call them, the ideal teacher input, the native speaker of English. When English was being exported, you know what I mean by exported? It was exported by a native speaker of English. I am amazed now that people are recruiting people to speak English like in Japan, and they will carry somebody from the Caribbean. The world has changed because they would never look to the source of the Caribbean to feel that. Everybody thought that you export the native speaker, who would be the expatriate, would be the person from England. And so it became a tool for domination and to continue the hegemonic relationship between the mother tongue and so on. So the motherland and so on. So we know we are at a point where we have to recognize that the language, the English that we speak, is standard Jamaican English. And some of us in our society will not call it that. Because they're saying there's nothing called Jamaican English. We ought to be speaking English. But English comes with the cultural icons and relevance. And none of us in here speaking British English. And we cannot fool ourselves. It's a Caribbean English. You go to Barbados, there is Bajan English. It has its accents, its intonation, and so on. But what is extremely good about this is that regardless of what English variety there is, it still carries the universal things that were noted by Naomi Chomsky. It still carries what is called universal grammar. Subject will always be subject. Verb will always be verb. You see what I'm getting at? So it doesn't matter in which social context you're learning English. There is something called a universal grammar that allows it to be taught and taught in a uniformed way, regardless of the differences and the nuances. Do you agree with me? There is this universal grammar that comes with subject predicate. It's the same kind of universal grammar that governs Spanish, or governs French, or governs any other language. And it is within that realm we can say that despite our historical background, and in spite of the social challenges we face, we can still come up with pedagogy for teaching English, because there are some things in the book that tells us how to accomplish that. And that is the hope that we have as teachers of English. You know? So when we come closer home to home now, and we look at some of our, what we would call our own theorists, you would have to begin to appreciate the work of like somebody like Professor Dennis Craig, because he has done a lot of work in that realm. So again, we are going to see that it is the academia, the same University of the West Indies where you are now studying. It's the University of the West Indies that began second dialect studies, in terms of to say that no, those things that were developed by others don't suit our situation, because we are in a dialect situation where most of the standard variety and the vernacular are coming off of the same root. So we have English-based Creoles, right? And it's because we have an English-based Creole while we have some of that. So the work of Dennis Craig is extensive. He's a prolific writer, and one of the things I want you to do in this course now is to continue to look at how theory is still informing us. But it's not the theories that you look at in the first half of the course. It's our local persons who are trying to make sense of a Caribbean context, to make sense of learning in that. And what you will find is that the work of Craig offers some good insights. Some of them are provocative too, but most of them are in the realm of reflective domain. And one of the things that he says is that it's not just the gap between Standard English and Jamaican Creole, but there is a gap between the production and the reception of English. All right, let me describe that. He says the speaker's ability to produce, to receive it, there's a gap between the receptive skill and the productive skill. It means then that I might hear English, I can receive it, but I am not competent in producing it. So this constant gap between the receptive ability and the productive ability, therein lies the realm for pedagogy. How can we move learners who are receivers of English to be producers of English? You understand what I'm saying, Robbie?
Yes, sir.
The productive facility and the receptive facility. So I don't want you now to just talk about there's a gap between Jamaican Creole and Standard English. If we continue to speak about it that way, we'll never be able to tackle it. Because there is, Jamaican Creole is one language and standard Jamaican English is another language. And I see them as parallels. I see them as options for the speaker to choose. Where we have the problem is when we want the child who is the predominant Creole speaker to move towards the target in English. There is room now for methodology. But ideally, who we should try to produce in the Caribbean is the ideal speaker and listener who will be both proficient in Creole as well as in standard English. But our greatest challenge is that our first language is more of an oral language, and there is still this struggle for a standard orthography, and that's therein lies our problem. If we could just write this language and it's uniformed and write it in a uniform way, we wouldn't have to be having this discussion. And there is the challenge, that the oral aspect of it, what it sounds like is so slippery, you can't get it on the page. And Cassidy tried his phonemic script. And I tell you something, if you were to really see something written like how LePage had developed it, and what Cassidy sort of pushed it, you will sit down and look at it for the whole day, because to me it's not even readable. You would have to understand the phonemic script, because boy don't have any O in it at all. It's something like B-A-I-I. You understand? Why? Because it's supposed to be the vowel. It's the phonemic. You see? And how you going to get them to see that teacher is now T-I-I-C-H-A? You know, teacher. There is no E in it anymore. Right? But then there are some schools that are doing it with Devonish. And they're having their bilingual program and making strides. And I hear that the students are reading and writing in Creole fluently. It is possible, but it comes with learning it, like from ABC, right up. Right. Now, the other question that we want to ask, so we're looking at theory and practice and reciprocal relationship, and then see our roles now as theorists in the second half of the course. So whatever you do in terms of teaching, textbook management, curriculum interpretation will now be informed with theory. It's either you're going to do this to the theory, you're going to adopt it, A-D-O-P-T, or you're going to adapt it, A-D-A-P-T, or you're going to appropriate it. So there are three strategies. Is it the adoption of theory, the adaptation of theory, or the appropriation of theory? Let us talk about those three words to see how we understand them. I think the first one speaks loudly for itself. A-D-O-P-T. What do you think that one means, Mr. Sam?
To simply lift, copy and paste.
To do what?
Copy and
To
paste.
take it. Yes, to take it as is. It means that second language theory can be adopted, because based on what it does, I can take it wholesale. And then the other one with the A means that I might have to do what, Mr. Clark?
Make changes where necessary.
Where necessary. So you might see some of these things that are good and appropriate, but you might have to do that. But what about to appropriate it?
I think
What you're saying, Dario? The context, to make it appropriate to the context. How you appropriate something, that's one thing, to get it appropriate to the context. Is appropriation different from adaptation?
I think appropriation has to do with the fact that, for example, I'm assuming, for example, that if the theory is like foreign, like let's just say that the person is coming like an American theorist, you would take the theory and of course you make it local, or you localize the theory to fit the local classroom. Let's just say that you're looking, for example, like Schumann or Pierce. So you take the theory, and of course you localize it so that it matches what you're researching on. For example, in a Jamaican classroom.
The part of what Darius says is correct. You begin to look at it in terms of its cultural relevance and significance and give it our cultural spin to it. Right. So when they look at the psychological distance there is in it, our psychological distance might be totally different because we don't have a migrant population in terms of they are indentured, they come across, you see, but we have a kind of different psychological distance that comes with perhaps like color of skin, you see what I'm trying to say, or the psychological thing, maybe age, the adult, and the respect and the distance for the adults as opposed to that. So that's right. What it means now is to begin to see it within the context of your culture. All right, good. Now, the other question is now, how do we answer this question in the second half of the course, which is predominantly practice, but it doesn't leave out theory. And that is why now we go into looking at the actual resources, the resources that we use to teach English in a Creole speaking environment. And one of the first one we take out is a textbook. So one of the first things that we do is what we call textbook evaluation. And one of your first tasks, that is for your, tell you when you do that, one of the things that we want to do is develop an instrument to evaluate the textbook that we use. But here is where we are going to be different. There are a lot of textbook evaluation instruments around. And it depends on what you're looking at. Because I might look at things like print, size of print, what else? Text, whether they are bold and so on. I am not into those superficial things. One of the questions I want you to ask is, what are the pedagogical insights underpinning the text? When you raise some questions about textbook, you'll be frightened to see what you find, perhaps in your favorite textbook. Remember, you know, that the textbook is developed. A publisher might say, produce a text not exceeding 300 pages, I need 10 units. So it is kind of packaged for the user. But is there a theory informing the writing process? Is there, what does it say about how language is acquired? Does it take the notion that the children already know English? Or is it scaffolding them into learning and develop competencies in English? It's interesting the moment you get this theory and you begin to question the textbook. What it does is going to open up a way now to let you understand that you are perhaps the mediator between the text and the student. So you're not just teacher, you're mediator. So when we look at textbook in this course, we are going to be talking about textbook, and we're going back to the same thing for theory. We're looking at textbook adoption, adaptation, mediation, and appropriation. Those are the four things that we are looking at. The adoption of it, the adaptation of it, the mediation, and the appropriation. Okay? So, what I want us to do now is to begin to ask ourselves, what's the role of textbook in language learning? Do textbook play a role? So that's one question. What's the role of textbook? You notice where we have shifted it? Oh, everybody was looking at social class, and we have looked at what? Social class. We have looked at psychological factors. So we're looking at if it's a research thing. But when we come into our classroom, we're looking at the real things. So what is the role of the teacher of English in the development of language? What's your role as teacher of English in getting your students to acquire English? You have to ask ourselves that. And then we go further, then we ask ourselves, what is the role of the HOD? I notice you laugh. You see, if ever we leave it at second language acquisition and theory only, we never ever get to the root of it. But we start to ask, what's the role of the textbook? What role does the textbook play in that? And what role does the teacher play? What's my role? And then what role does the HOD play? And then when you begin to look at that now, you're going to see some factors that are going to impinge on pedagogy. You're going to see some factors that other writers in SLA have not yet mentioned. Because you must also understand that, you know, amidst the theory of second language, there is actually an evolution of language teaching methods. I don't know if you touched those in your course. But there was a time when language was taught by total physical contact, total physical response, I mean. So, if I wanted to teach language, I would say, close the door, and Robin would get up and close the door. And if I wanted to say, open the window, you'd go across and open the window. Total physical response. Lift the chair, you'd lift the chair. Lift it, he'd lift that. Throw the pen, you'd throw the pen. Take up the book, you'd take up the book. Total physical response. And then they move into, it's almost like a fad and fashion. Then they move into this audiolingual method, which meant that, yeah, you did it. The audiolingual. And then with the audiolingual method, you know what became very popular? Language learning places where people would go into like a lab and put these things over their head and sit there. And that brought countries a lot of money. Because the fad was audio. I listen to English.
But
so
is the process doing something like that?
Yeah, you push it in. Yes, you push it in and you listen. So the input was that. And then there was this thing about suggestopodia. So, yes, suggestop is coming off audiolingual, that if you put little music with it too and stimulate the environment, the language learner would know more. And before I even get there, remember there was grammar translation method. The grammar translation method, which was, you know, coming out of Chomsky's work. And then it came up and up to communicative language teaching, to interactive language teaching. So what we are trying to say now, that the language teaching methodology has evolved over time, you know? And we are at communicative language teaching for a long while. Communicative language teaching and interactive language teaching. That's kind of where we are, you know, for a good while now. And those are not, I would even call them methods, because the methods are the ones that you did in theory, you know, like the second language acquisition, or the teaching it as a foreign language as opposed to teaching it as a second language, or so on. But communicative language teaching is more like an approach. It's an approach to teaching English, right? Then the interactive domain and so on. So I'm saying all of this to tell you that the research over the years has been dynamic, it's prolific, but one of the things about it is that it is constantly changing. Yes, there's some things that are foregone conclusion, but there is always still that open-endedness in the findings. You know, and it is because of the social nature of language. Because right now, how do you teach English in a Jamaican Creole society where students don't hear English as input? They don't hear enough English as the input. You understand what I'm saying? The natural sources from which they'll get English are now being taken over by Creole. You know, you can't say turn on the radio again and say listen, because the only thing you might hear for that whole day is the news. You see, it's not like that anymore. So when the Creole language is now taking the place of what the standard variety would normally do, then you're, I don't want to say you're in trouble. You have greater challenge for your pedagogy. Because that input that you expect from the social environment is dwindling. It's dwindling. And the research has shown that the social dimension is crucial in language learning. You have to have that dimension. So when our social dimension is the way it is, how do you do it? These are some of the questions we raise in this second half of the course. How do you do that? How do you actually teach English now in a Creole speaking, and having been informed by those theoretical things that have now opened your insights to make you question some things, but open the insights in such a way that you want to experiment and also to do further research. That's where we are at now. I want to stop here for right now and ask if there are any questions you'd like to ask. Any questions? Gavin?
No questions.
No questions. Any from this end? Okay. Now, let's see. There is the ORVLE. I just got my password to go up today. By the way, did you ever get your registration so that you can actually go into this, the old 21F site?
Well, I can't access.
Until now?
I can.
But we cannot get into some of the sites.
Really?
Yes.
So-
I've only been able to get onto one thing, and that is the last one, Dr. Rainford. None of the others I can.
Which I don't understand, because once you're registered for the course,
Yeah, we are registered.
and that, so how come you're not seeing even 21F until now?
Dr. Ferraria, remember that for your course, for Dr. Folcom's course, there's a specific password because I got onto it. But you have to remember that Miss Moore is the one that puts you onto it. And then you have a specific password.
Another specific password?
Right, so if you're able to access Dr. Ray's course, they should be able to access Dr. Folcom's course.
No, it doesn't work. We were told to put in told us to put in the whatever the code, so we put in the code thing and got into Dr. Rainford's course, but it doesn't work for Dr. Folcom. I've never put
Because the
anything
password for Dr. Folcom's course is different from the one for Dr. Rainford's course. It's not the same password.
So why they put a password to it? So anybody you have got on to, because we are going to share the same site. The site that Dr. Folcom was on. I have to get access into that site now.
But if it's a different password, I guess we can
No,
get
but even so, I would have just put in the ED, whatever it's called, and it just never worked. It never worked.
I'm going to try to go on now.
Or you are being so big now. I don't know. Because even to send assignments, remember Dr. Rainford sent us an email to say we need to send it to OURVLE. Then she checked and she sent back a list of names that I realized that you guys can't get out, so send it to my regular email.
Really? I don't understand, because I was really upset last semester though, because I spent a lot of time. It was the first course and they said that we put in on all our things, and I spent a lot of time getting all the reading on, scanning them, putting them on, you know, because we hear that we're teaching in a virtual space, you understand? And until now, you people are not able to get on, and that should not be so, because you're supposed to be able to get on. Oh Jesus, right now I don't understand this, because I don't know, and every summer they change up the platform. Alright,
It says that I'm not enrolled. I keep on seeing that sign.
it's not enrolled, so I wonder if somebody has to let you in. Alright, let me see. I'm trying to go on this side, gentlemen.
There's not even anything to click on it. Like today when we went to Dr. Rainford, there was something, and then you press it, I don't see anything to access.
Trying to get onto ORVLE, because I'm still gonna use that platform to put a lot of stuff. Oh dear, where am I? What time is it? Okay. Okay, while I'm searching for that, as it relates to 21F, Robin?
Yes, sir.
Did you get to with the agreement for the presentation?
Oh, you mean for the other course?
Yes.
When we were waiting, we said that you would prefer to just dialogue about it like when we see you.
Okay.
Alright, so we were thinking that we could do the micro teaching with lesson plan, and then we would do a rationale for it. I don't know. We don't want to test
the micro. And you know you'd have passed the test.
No test, doc. No test.
My nice test was so developed.
No test.
I don't know why you don't take the test.
Just let us do something that we will do in the classroom, practical.
I know. I'm going to merge. I'm going to.
Right.
I think you should do a oral presentation. If you're going to teach a reading lesson, something in reading, you make a presentation on reading in the language in use classroom. And if you decide that your lesson is on writing, you make the presentation on the writing, right? So it's all well and good. You just do an oral presentation. Right, Robin?
Right now.
You do an oral presentation. So that would be like, could be 10 marks. It's the same thing that you want to know, but I'm giving you a chance to talk about the lesson that you're teaching. So that's what I mean by the oral presentation. So you either make your presentation and then you teach, or you teach and then make your presentation. Right? So think about that for a while. I don't understand this site. It has me well kicked out now. In fact, when I go in, I'm not even seeing the university for me to go on as a lecturer. I wonder if RVL is down.
No, it's not.
You're on it?
No, I'm on it. Let me check on my.
Let's see if we can get on.
You don't know.
I wonder which one I should take. This one?
What is it?
I think I want you to do the best practice manual. The best practice manual for your assignment. Because you will go back to your school with something like that. So what it does, if you're doing something with textbook, you have that piece in the manual, so you could be working with the textbook, working with, I also want you to explore something in the oral dimension too. Why? Because this big thing about teaching English and testing the oral thing, I want you to be on the cutting edge when you go back in. So we want to do some oral language thing, whether testing it or teaching it. How do you develop oral competence in English? It's going to be big for a long time now because you know of the change in the CXC syllabus. And,
when is it taking effect?
When
is it taking effect?
Maybe 2016, not sure, or 2018. But and the school-based assessment involves oral presentation of it, and there's much on it that involves research. And that's why I wanted to do research with you. I wanted you to understand simple research, generating a topic or your instrument, pretty much like the communication studies, how you teach the research aspect of it. So I don't want you to finish a course so close to a new syllabus implementation and you're not cutting edge with it. So that's why I'm tweaking to make sure that you do something that puts you ahead of the rest once you go back into your
Dr.
classroom.
Ferraria,
Yeah.
I got onto it. I got onto the course.
You got onto this course?
I see key factors in the English language curriculum, and I see EDLA meta course, Paulette Ferraria and Yuandi Lewis.
So you reach there, some reach there. What you go? You go Faculty of Humanities and Education too?
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, Doc, you see where they go on the Orville page, you're not going to get on if you use that platform. On that same page, you're going to see something that says new platform for Orville.
Yes, but me not see that again.
It's there.
I saw that earlier.
It's there over the right hand side, top right.
You see any new platform for this? I don't see it. When I opened it earlier today, I saw it. But I am now in the student page. I'm not supposed to be on the student page at all.
And I think he's on maybe on the lecturer page.
You're on the lecturer page?
Possibly.
No, I'm not.
Oh, you get onto the lecturer page.
I'm not on the lecturer page.
No, I am. Every time I go into my email, I see as if I'm on the lecturer page, and I know I can't click on that. I'm not supposed to be seeing this. That's not how my platform is supposed to look. All right, may I go back again? I'm starting from clicking on that. And what should I go into now? I'm going into Google. What did you put in? Just ORVLE?
All right, it's OURVLE.Mona.
Oh, you put in the whole word, the whole everything.
So OURVLE.Mona.
No man, I'll put in the whole thing. I just done ORUVLE, so maybe I didn't get the. But every time I look at it, I realize that's not my platform.
Just type in this, Doc. Ready? Type in this. OUR.
Yeah.
VLE.
Dot Mona.
No.
Edu.
Doc, not Mona. Don't type Mona. Type OURVLE.Mona. Don't put Mona.
Why?
Because that's the old platform.
Okay.
That's the old platform.
All right. Yeah, they have a new platform.
That's why they're not getting it.
Yes, Mona too. Or VLE 2. Yes, man, you click on the one till come on.
And that's probably why they're not getting on either.
Because you're clicking on the old one. You have to click on VLE 2. I knew that from last year. You never know that? It's VLE 2. No.
That's why they're not getting on.
It's 2. If you go on the old platform, you don't see the course.
You're not going to see it on the old platform.
What do I do next?
Me think you didn't know that. It's 2.
No.
It's VLE 2. I know that much.
You go to faculty of education too.
Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to write up the 21F assignment, write it up as a one-pager and post it up so you know you have that to do it. When would you like to do that?
After much needed rest.
Huh?
Nick, after much needed rest.
When would you want to do that and get it over quickly?
Next week.
Yeah man, before the new one, I just want to do it as a course start.
Next week, Doc. I suggest next week.
We do what?
And then we're going to get how many assignments for this one?
No man, we'll be good for this one. Assignments don't come a way to pressure you. I know how to do the course when it's intensive.
Okay.
I'm doing the course as you go along. I get the stuff. I don't want when you finish you're swamped. No, I don't want that at all. I don't want that for myself either. Hey, Robin.
Yes.
Where is the tool?
No, it's not. That's why I was telling you to type it in. I was telling you what to type in.
All right, let me go back again.
Right.
I have the same. Oh, you are vle.mona.edu.
Yeah, that's the one.
Then I just.
No, you might be looking at UE Mona. Check carefully.
No, stamina on you, Mona.
Alright, let me tell you what I have. You listening, Doc?
Alright.
It's OURVLE dot Mona MONA dot UE dot EDU. That's the new platform.
Yes! Yes!
You not click on it yet?
So what does she
That's just it.
log in?
I don't know.
Log in up there, so username.
Alright, let me try log in.
Try the username password.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. And you're going to get it. You see, you have to log on the old page and listen. But I'm not seeing our page on this. I'm going to bring up the old page.
I'm not seeing nothing here, so. Alright.
So you can't put in that username?
No, sister, may I try do it on it?
Exactly.
Well, logging as a text.
You can't be logged in. You can't be something like that. I get on.
You still can't log in?
We can't log in none at all. Today's what? Today Thursday. No, today's not Thursday. They work on the platform on a Thursday.
They do?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. There's not
I know how to bring up the old page.
There's Wednesday.
Alright, Robin.
Yes, Doc.
Well, I have to go sort out this. Well, it means that my name is up there on the platform. It means that I can put stuff there. So
Yeah, because
that's
I'm seeing
where
your
we
name. I'm seeing your name. I'm seeing your name for the course.
Yes. But my name would be on the course there all along because I teach the course.
So the new platform is that's alright.
No, but once my name is there, it means that I can access it. Once you see my name and Dr. Folcom's name on it. And you see Dr. Folcom's name still on there. Robin.
Yes, Doc.
Okay. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, that's her book.
I don't know what else to do here now. But I'm not worrying my head. Okay. Tomorrow, Thursday's class.
Fridays.
Friday's class.
Friday's class is at 8:30.
Is that, so you're changing?
No, I'll be in Kingston.
No, that's
On
not.
the timetable it says.
Don't say.
2:30.
No, I don't know what it says.
Oh, it's 8:30. Yes,
Eh. 8:30 to 2:30. No, I'll be coming from the Mona campus.
Yes. So it's 8:30 for Friday.
Yes.
And if you want to change it for today, you can come
So if you get up 8:30, 8:30.
You mean 2:30 to 7 o'clock? And who did put that the time?
And you know, the funny thing is, when we were doing the other course, during the time when we were supposed to be working, it was 8:30.
Nobody tells you.
So I would love it if you could put in a word and say
No, but when we come and look at them, we say, oh, in their right mind, put you on class 2:30 to 7 o'clock at night time. You know, things says an error. Why you have the whole day and you put that?
Oh, I know today's what, Wednesday? Because the math class is at 8:50. CGS class is at 8:50.
It doesn't really matter because they're somewhere else, so we can easily go 8:30.
The maths class down here is at 8:30.
Yeah, he uses here.
We don't know here, we can go to the one at 8:30.
If you want to,
No, but you don't have the facility to.
Yeah, man, we have
with Skype.
no, man, they had this up there,
So only my class go from 2:30 to 7 at night. So because me know, so wait, me know somebody.
No.
When I came from 6 and start, we say who make this timetable?
They were accommodating you, Dr. Ferraria.
Accommodating?
I thought
2 to 7. Robin,
Yes, Doc.
how you guys feel about 2:30 to 7?
On a Friday? Not on a Friday.
No, I mean today's class is supposed to be 2:30 to 7, you know.
We kind of get used to it from the last semester.
You had it 2:30 to 7 last semester too?
Yeah, that with Dr. Was
yeah, but that was
Dr.
fine because
Frick.
work. We can work.
Oh, okay. Then just keep it the same time.
Yeah, they just kept it at the same time.
But I think we could actually, if there's no problem, I think we could actually meet in the morning.
You can't come.
No, I think it has to do with availability of room too.
Exactly.
Because they are saying that down here, the maths class is at 8:30.
But the thing is, when we're using Skype, we're having issues like yesterday.
No, but that's not. It's just that our other lecturer has chosen to use Skype. It's not a matter
No,
of.
it's a matter of, she said the room that they are in is just like this.
Really?
But you're not listening, yeah. That's what she said. That's what she, oh yeah, you were.
Which
She
room?
said yesterday. So, look at the use that you yesterday. It don't have this thing. That's why we have to use Skype.
Remember last time they were having it up here.
Alright, so gentlemen,
Yes, Doc.
Friday morning at 8:30,
Yes, Dr. Ferraria.
I promise you will have whatever it is for your 21F and our, the lecture for the course, to go on. I want to also give you a breakdown of what we'll do in each class.
Yes.
I'll give you the topics and stuff to be covered on the timetable that I have. I have July 23rd, 25th, July 30, August 1, August 6, August 8. When it is like that, I want to give you a schedule of what will be done and if there's any assigned reading, so you have that from day one.
Okay.
So I'm going to work on that. I just have, tomorrow is what, Thursday? Yeah. I just have tomorrow to work on that to produce it for Friday.
Dr. Ferraria, if you can, since we can't provide access or really just wait.
Try the 2 first.
We would appreciate it if you could just email it to us too.
Okay. And try the 2 first. See if you're on it because you're not on. Right. You understand, gentlemen?
Yes, Doc.
I'm going to, Friday morning, you will get content reading, like a work, what you call it now? A course outline for the next half.
Right.
Because when it is this intensive, you have to see exactly where we are going.
All right.
So I have that ready for Friday morning, as well as the test for 21F. And one of these days, because the time is long, one of the 2 o'clock, because it's from 2:30 to 7. I mean, we gotta have breaks in between. I'll tell you what the breaks are and what you will do. So sometimes it's not just lecture, it's application, lecture application, lecture application, right? Please start collecting some textbooks, the textbooks that are being used now regularly in the school, like at your school, right? Because we are going to do textbook evaluation and we are going to do the mediation, how you actually use the textbook. So bring textbooks, come. What else I need you to come with? I think it's more the syllabus and whatever curriculum that's out there. We're gonna need that. We're gonna spend a section looking at the role of you as researcher and things like that. But I'll work out a nice and exciting package with the most relevant things from the, everything is relevant, but I'll try to collapse it. Right. So that you don't lose out as much as if we were doing the whole course for the whole semester. And intensive programs work because what you get face to face, you still pick it up in your reading. So we will do reading and reading reports that will have value. Meaning that the reading reports will be graded. Or whatever you report on will be graded. So by the time you're finished, you actually have your marks for the course. I think she gave you something that was valid, what, 60?
Yes.
You say you got something for 60?
Yes.
Right.
40.
The test was
And you did something for her for 40?
Yes.
Yes. The lesson plan and the rational.
The rational and the lesson plan.
So whatever we do now must also be 100. That's how they have measured it. So I still have to have a 60-40 comp. We can get that easily. Right? Because almost everything we do now will attach some kind of mark. Understand what I'm trying to say? Yes. Alright, so...
Now, I want to ask you about something that I heard about. I don't know if you know. There, this is kind of an aside. Is there a 2 to 3 year PhD, MPhil PhD program in education?
2 to 3?
Yeah.
I know it could never be. I know it could never be 2.
Or it has to.
I know a PhD, even if it is full time, it's not 2 years. Who tell you about that?
Well, I don't want to call the name because it's being recorded. I don't want to call the name because it was being recorded. But I will ask. They were just saying that there is a kind of intensive. It's kind of intensive in the sense that they're trying to get you to finish as quickly as possible. So you do, I think, 2 courses if you stop at the MPhil and mostly 4 or 5 courses if you're going to the PhD. Something like that.
Oh, it's the thought, it's the EDD.
Oh yes, I was reading another.
If it's an EDD they're going to do, they're going to actually do it?
That's what I heard. I heard that they actually have the first
Once you
class.
mention courses, it's the thought doctorate, which is an EDD.
Oh, there's a doctorate.
No, we don't have it.
Oh, okay.
But that, I don't know if we're starting it.
Oh.
So like that, because once you tell me that you're doing courses, that would be an EDD.
Okay.
A doctorate in education.
So is it a good or a bad good thing? Good or
No,
bad
it's
thing?
not. A lot of universities do EDD. Columbia University, one of the great, is EDD. We just do PhD, which is the Doctor of Philosophy. What do you call it too? Sheffield, University of Sheffield. EDDs. Taught doctorate, just like we have the taught masters.
Okay.
So perhaps they're coming up with they won't toying around with it. That is to tell you how
I'm not hearing you.
Yes, I'm saying that is to tell you how many department meetings I've gone to.
It's been recorded, Dr.
Remember you're being recorded.
That's already. It's recorded.
Yes.
And who listens to it after that?
They put it on the platform for our benefits.
They're on the platform
They can't retract.
without editing it?
No editing.
I don't think that's ethical. Really?
Yes, you're starting
So all my little sides about your nice dress and all of that, everybody hearing that?
Only we will see, but we are the only ones who are interested in watching the tape.
6 hours.
For 6
For 6 hours.
Oh, you're the ones who have access back with it.
No, not necessarily.
Okay, well, see you on Friday morning. Remember, I tell you to start to pull my resources together for the lecture. All kinds of textbooks. You listen, Robin? Gavin? You have them at your hand because it's it's intensive.
That's what
You know, we make sure. Syllabus,
and textbooks.
syllabus, textbooks, and so on. We look at that. And we look too on the CNC. Gavin, we look also on the CSET syllabus. So one of the things that we are exploring in here, which I think is timely, how do you teach oral English in our Caribbean? So I want it to be something cutting edge, what we're doing. So I have access to the curriculum, but it's not something that you're going to teach. But I'll find ways and means in trying to get some of the topics of it to look at, to discuss.
Okay.
But as I said, by the time you finish this MAT, you should go back equipped, because you're not going to come back here to do anything else except your PhD. Am I right?
That is
All right,
correct.
so.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay. So God bless you and thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll see you on Friday morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
A bad area, Regina.
Bye.
All right.
So the class is switched.
Me no know.
8:30.
No, but that's okay, right? It's up to you, you know.
No, 8:30 for what time? From 8?
Oh, that's all.
Me no know.
Yeah.
you.